Welcome to the HBCU podcast. We'll be joined by some awesome HBCU grads in the form of co-host and guest for this podcast. Just so you know, the HBCU podcast comes from our love of historically Black colleges and universities. So often, we get information related to our university students, but we rarely get a look into the great things our alumni are doing. On this episode, we speak with Jeffrey Pierce II. He's a graduate of Paine College. Jeffrey serves as Director of Recruitment and Admissions at Huston Tilliston University. He's also author of Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience. During this episode, we talk about his work in higher education, his book, and Parallel Inception, his consulting firm. Keep listening. It's the HBCU podcast.
I'm Jeffrey Pierce, and I am a 2010 graduate of Paine College.
So, Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
Yeah, I'm so excited to speak to you.
Oh, likewise. This is just an amazing opportunity to share with the listeners that follow the HBCU podcast. So, again, I do appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm excited to have you here. Of course, I always tell everybody who listens, hey, this is one of my friends, or we used to work together. So we've known each other for a little bit, but I don't know everything about you.
Right. This goes back to the old Paine College days.
Old PC. So just to be clear, because I got your bio here, and of course I've been on your website. Clear it up for the people. Are you a native South Carolinian or a native Georgian? Where are you from, Jeffrey?
Okay, so it just really depends on who's reading and how they interpret it. But I was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia, but I was raised in between Florence and Darlington, South Carolina. But I claim South Carolina as my hometown.
Nice. So if you're not familiar with the state of South Carolina at all, where Jeffrey is talking about is considered the lower state of South Carolina. So
the PD area,
Yep.
the PD.
Yep. Also known as the PD. Cool. So let's start off talking a little bit about your HBCU journey. See, I'm calling yours a journey because if I'm not mistaken, you started off at Claflin University, right?
Yeah, actually I did. So I am a graduate of Paine College, but my HBCU journey, it did, as you mentioned, start out at Claflin University. And it actually, my journey goes back to high school. I was an athlete in high school. I played baseball. And when it came to the college selection process or the college admissions process, I really didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. I knew I wanted to play baseball, but where? Didn't really know. And then also my knowledge about HBCUs were really kind of limited. My mom, she graduated from an HBCU, Morris College, which is in Sumter, South Carolina. But I didn't know it as an HBCU. I just knew it as schools where the Black people go. But going back to that story, coming out of high school, my baseball coach, he was actually in Shoney's, and he ran into the baseball coach at the time at Claflin University. And he mentioned to him, he said, hey, I have a couple of guys who may be interested or who can potentially play baseball at the collegiate level. I'd love for them, to have the opportunity to play. So the coach at the time invited us down to try out. My baseball coach, he drove myself and two other teammates down for the tryout. And I actually did pretty well and got invited to return for another tryout. But to make a long story short, I eventually was offered a big scholarship of $500 to be a baseball player at Claflin University. It was just a book scholarship, but it was an opportunity for me to continue to play baseball at the collegiate level. So I went to Claflin, absolutely enjoyed my time there. I stayed there for 2 years. And without going too deep into the story, there were a few things that happened on the athletic side that really had me a little unhappy, not with the school, but just with the baseball program at the time. So I explored my options to transfer to another school. And what did I do? I transferred to one of the rival schools right there in the conference, Paine College. So I attended Paine College for another 2 years, had an absolute amazing time there as well. Um, Became a very well known athlete on the baseball diamond, and the rest is just history. Like I said, I graduated in 2010, but that's pretty much my journey.
So how'd you find out about Paine? Because I'm of course after you're researching once you decided you wanted to leave Claflin. How did you learn about Paine over in Augusta, Georgia?
So I found out about Paine through a teammate. So another teammate of mine at Claflin, um, he was also, upset, with the baseball program at Claflin. And he said, "Hey, man, you know what? Let's leave and let's go to Paine." He said, "There's a great opportunity there. The guys who play our position, uh, they're seniors. So the position's wide open for us to actually go in there, start, and make a change at Paine." So he and I got together, and we transferred to Paine. So I actually found out about Paine through another teammate at Claflin.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, and did y'all stay? Did you and your teammate? I guess I know you stayed there because you clearly graduated, but did he stay his full time and graduate too?
absolutely. We graduated together. We transferred in together and graduated together.
Awesome. So I love the HBCU journey. Even though you left the best HBCU around, it's cool.
I often refer back to the many memories that I had at Claflin. In those 2 years, I will say there were enough memories to last a lifetime because we still talk about those today.
Cool, cool. So, you already told me that your family has an HBCU history. Your mom went to Morris, so shout out to Morris College.
Mhm.
But you were a business administration major at Payne. So, at the time, what were, and they may still be you may be living your aspirations now, but what were your aspirations at the time when you decided, hey, business administration is where I would like to gain my degree knowledge?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, business that was my major, and it had a focus on management. So while I was in college, I really I thought at that time I wanted to work in the banking industry. So for a long time, that's exactly what I was striving for. It wasn't until I graduated from college and I had an opportunity to try out for a professional baseball team. That didn't go well, and I found myself back in Augusta with a college degree, and found myself back in Augusta with a college degree, working a part-time job in the mall. And at that moment, I said to myself, okay, you're a grad, you have a degree, you're working part-time. And my motivation was not to go back home to South Carolina. I really wanted to, stay out, find my way and figure out what I was going to do with my life. So that led me to getting online and researching different career opportunities. This was back when Career Builder was really popular. I'm not sure if Career Builder is still popular, but Career Builder was popular. So I hopped on Career Builder, and this was before I even knew what the title sales associate really meant. Um, so I saw a job on Career Builder at Kia of Augusta, the car dealership, and it said sales associate. So I applied for the job. I received a call, invited to come down to do an interview. Basically, got the job to be a car salesman or sales associate, whoever's interpreting it. And I sold cars for about 4 months. And when I tell you I absolutely hated it, I really hated selling cars. And I was successful while I sold cars, but I absolutely hated it. Just something that I didn't see myself doing for the rest of my life. And there was this thought in my head over and over again. all right, you're a college grad. You didn't go to school for 4 years to sell cars, so that was just like motivation to continue to, explore and find other options. Well, after about 4 months uh, selling cars, I get a random phone call. And this random phone call came from the director of admissions at Paine College at the time. Um, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Friday. And he said to me, "Hey, my name is such and such. I'm the director of admissions at Paine College. Just wanted to know if you'd be interested in interviewing for an admissions recruiter counselor position here at the university." And I remember saying, "Can I interview today?" And and he said, "Sure." He was like, "How soon can you get here?" I told him, I said, "I'm going to take my lunch break. I'm going to go home, change clothes, print out my resume, and I'll see you by 2 o'clock." So I, I did all that, interview that Friday, and that Monday he gave me a call and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I love the initiative that you took to interview today." He said, "When we had our conversation, he said, I could really see how you could be really successful within this line of work." He said, "So I want to offer you the job." So, man, when I tell you, I was absolutely just excited, because I'm no longer selling cars. Something that I really, really hated.
How and when, if at all, did you and the director of admissions at the time cross paths? How did he find out about you? Is it something you applied to?
So this director of admission, he said every year at graduation, he often looked at the graduation program and looked at the graduates, and he said he specifically looked at students who majored in business, journalism, or English. And then, of course, on these graduation programs, you could see, who is graduating cum laude, summa cum laude, so forth. So he used that as his base to see who he would be interested in. So he saw my name, did a little bit of research, found out that I was a baseball player, reached out to my baseball coach to, just inquire a little bit more about me as a person, reached out to some of my professors, um, reached out to some of my professors and, did reference checks on them, on me with them, and everything checked out. So basically the moral of the story is, you want to always try and leave, a good impression, because you never know when that can turn into a new opportunity for you. So that's pretty much how he, found out about me and just called me one day and invited me in for an interview.
I absolutely love this story. Like, I didn't know that was your path, to Paine College at the time, but I love the story. And mostly because of what you just said, like college and being there, you just want to be on your P's and Q's and be leaving behind the best impression, because you just never know who's watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so that you didn't know that admissions was going to be your career path, or higher education rather, and you started off, car salesman. You didn't even apply for this job, and it came and found you.
Right.
So tell me more about how you progressed in your career. I know you've been to Albany State, and you're now at Huston Tilliston. What was that journey like?
So I worked at Paine College for a year and a half as the undergraduate admissions counselor and recruiter. And just to go back to what you were saying, like, I had no idea this was going to be my career path until, and I'll share a quick story. I went on my first recruitment trip with an admissions counselor. You and I, we know this guy very well. Um, um, and we went on our first recruitment trip to New Jersey. And this guy, he actually trained me on how to be a recruiter. And there was one thing that I remember him always telling me, for the comedian that he is, and he was actually serious this time. And he said, "Man, if you approach this job as if you're changing lives, then you will never work a day that you're in this industry." So that's something that I've always remembered. So after doing the recruitment piece at Paine for a year and a half, another opportunity came my way to be the graduate admissions counselor at Albany State in Albany, Georgia. A funny story is this opportunity came very similar to the Paine College opportunity. As a recruiter working at Paine, you're meeting other counselors from uh, other HBCUs or other schools, and there was this one particular counselor who really admired the way I approached my work. And one day she got a phone call from one of her former directors. And her former director said, "Hey, I'm in the market looking for a graduate admissions counselor. Do you know anybody who could fit this, who could take on the responsibilities for this particular position?" So she gave him my name. He reached out to me. I sent him my resume and he said, "Apply for the job." He said, "I definitely want you on board." So again, moral of the story, you never know who's watching because that could present a new opportunity. So I went to Albany State as the graduate admissions counselor, and I worked there for 4.5 years. Was actually responsible for growth in enrollment. When I arrived there at Albany State, I want to say the graduate enrollment was somewhere around 472 students. Before I left, the graduate enrollment had even tipped over the 600 mark in terms of graduate students. So I did that for about 4.5 years. And then the opportunity came for me to be the director of recruitment and admissions at Huston Tilliston University, where I currently am now in Austin, Texas. Now, I will say this particular opportunity did not happen the way my Paine College and my Albany State opportunity happened. So I actually applied for the position. It was available online. Now, I will share a unique story about my application process. So I submitted my application, and then one day I got a random call on a Saturday from my current supervisor, the Dean of Enrollment Management. And she said, "Hey, my name is such and such. We received your application." She said, "But your resume wasn't attached, and I just wanted to give you a call to see if you were still interested in the position." So I said, "Absolutely." So I sent over my resume that Saturday. So what was really alarming to me was I just knew that I submitted my resume with my application, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But that was a sign to me that, hey, this may be the perfect opportunity,
Right.
because they still reached out to me, even though I didn't submit all of the application requirements. You and I both know that sometimes going through the application process, that's just one way to disqualify you as a candidate if you don't attach all of the required documents. So I went through 3 levels of interviews, and here I am at Huston Tilliston University, where I've been for the last year and a half. So that's my journey within higher ed, and it all started um, selling cars and getting a phone call on a Friday.
I love that. Now, like I said, I've known you for a while now, and we've worked together, and you've always had a way with people. That's something I can say for sure about you. But being in this role, well, not just this role, but in higher education for as long as you have been, and I'm guessing it's going to be like 10 years soon. But
Yeah.
what do you enjoy most about your work?
So what I enjoy most about my work, really and truly, is just the interaction with the students. I know a lot of higher ed professionals, they say that. But I truly mean that. And not that they don't mean it, but I truly mean that working within enrollment management, most of the students that you interact with are prospective students. So you may engage with them only for a short span. Just the recruitment piece, just, getting them in the door, and then you're turning them over to the retention specialist, and now you're focused on another group of prospective students for the upcoming year. But what I've learned to do over the years working within enrollment management is to continue to be an outlet for those students that I recruit. to the institution. So, invite those students to volunteer within the admissions office, to join student organizations that are directly in our office, such as campus tour guides, so that I can continue to engage with those students that I recruited to the institution, and also see their development over the span that they're enrolled at the institution. So I absolutely enjoy just interacting and engaging with the students in terms of my experience working at an HBCU.
So you're taking a play from your former boss's playbook, and the students a little well. You get to see them on a regular basis. They could possibly be a part of the team, after they graduate.
Absolutely, absolutely. They don't know it, but they're auditioning.
Okay, so now even though you run the entire admissions and recruitment department over at Huston Tilliston, you're also an author.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You're the author of Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience. Now, what led you to write this book?
So what led me to write this book was the number of terrible customer service interactions that I experienced just from patronizing various businesses and interactions with different organizations. And one day I just had a thought, and I said, man, I really need to write a book on customer service. And with that, I didn't have any content. So that's weird. Most people, when they say they're going to write a book, they already have the content that they're going to, put down in the book. But I always knew I wanted to write a book on customer service and be able to provide tips on how to improve customer service, but didn't have the content. So one day I'm in the bank, and the teller in which I'm handling my transaction with, she has a piece of paper on like her cubicle. And that paper, it had the word guest, and it was broken down. It said the G was for the greeting, the U was for undivided attention, the E was for empathize, the S was for solution, and the T was for thank you. So when I read that, I'm like, is that her way of reminding herself how to deliver good customer service? So I took that as that. And I said, you know what? That is going to be the blueprint for my book. So before I actually started writing, I researched the web just to make sure, it wasn't trademarked. No one has used it before. And I said, you know what? I'm going to write my book on these 5 principles: a greeting and undivided attention, displaying empathy, providing a solution, and thanking the customers. And that served as the base for my customer service book. So I conducted research on each area, and then I just began to write every single day. And then while I was writing, at the time I was working at Albany State. And I said, you know what, let me apply this to my daily duties, my daily work. And in applying those 5 strategies, viewing the customers as guests instead of as customers, that actually contributed to the enrollment increases that I mentioned earlier. When I arrived there at Albany State, there was this negative stigma in terms of, and this is often common amongst a lot of institutions of higher education. Oh, well, no one's going to answer the phone. No one's going to respond to my emails. No one's going to listen to me. So I said, well, let me apply these principles. Let me make sure I greet them. Let me make sure I listen to them. If they're having a challenging situation, let me make sure I empathize and put myself in their shoes. And then also let me make sure I provide a solution. And then let me thank them at the end of the day. So I found ways to incorporate those 5 principles into my work, and that helped with that enrollment increase. So I said, man, I'm definitely going to continue to write this book. So that's how I pretty much came up with the idea in terms of writing this book, Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience.
I love that. There are little signs everywhere, all around you, and I love that you saw that when you were having an actual customer service experience. Now, just so everybody knows, Jeff is, and you don't mind if I call you Jeff, do you?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Is a customer service expert. I'm going to go ahead and throw expert on there because you have received 2 awards highlighting your excellent display of customer service. You received the Enrollment Management Gold Star Award for demonstrating excellent customer service, and you've also received the Distinguished Service Award, which is recognition for your diligent and tireless efforts to improve customer service. So this is an expert. He's been awarded. He's proven. So congratulations on those awards.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell us more about the premise of the book?
Yeah. So the premise of the book is based around the 5 principles of the word guest. So just to give you a backstory, in the book, I mean, it's not a spoiler alert, but in the book, we refer to customers as guests. So in the beginning, you may see the word customer being used, but then it will transition to where the word customer is being replaced by the word guest, because the idea is to get the reader in the mindset of viewing their customers as their guest. But it's based around those 5 principles. The G, which is the greeting. We want to make sure that we greet our guest, whether it be in a timely manner, whether it be with a smile, whether it be with a friendly voice, making sure we have the appropriate body language, making sure we have the correct tone in our voice. So that's the G for greeting. When it comes to undivided attention, we want to focus on active listening skills. There's this quote that I use often, and it says, if you're listening to respond, then you're not listening. So when it comes to the undivided attention piece, we want to make sure that we're listening to the guests as they share with us the scenario or the situation or the issue or what have you. We want to make sure that we're listening and not listening to respond, so it doesn't cloud our thought, and just fully allow them to relay that situation so that we can then transition into the empathy phase. So we've greeted them, we've listened to them, and we've heard them. So now we can begin to empathize with them and place ourselves within their shoes so that we can truly feel or attempt to feel where they're coming from, which transitions into the solution phase. So if we're able to empathize with them and feel what they're going through, now we're also able to, begin to develop a solution. And then at the end of that solution, once we've delivered that solution to them, we always want to thank them, whether the situation is negative or whether the situation is positive. You always want to end with a thanks. So the book revolves around those 5 principles, a very simple approach to customer service, which is a very broad and widely discussed topic. But with these 5 principles, you simplify customer service, keeping them as guests to improve or to create that ultimate service experience. So basically, after you purchase this book, you're getting all the tools you need to be on par with the Chick-fil-A's of the world. That's it. Great. Awesome. Now, what I also love that you are out here doing, we're going to talk a little bit about you doing some consulting, and Parallel Inception is how you're disseminating even more customer service knowledge to those in need. Now, how'd you come up with that? Tell us a little bit about what it is, and all of the great tips that you're giving out on these Tuesdays that can help people, really become better at serving their customers. Absolutely. So Parallel Inception, it's a company of mine. It's a consulting company, and it's pretty much devoted to, making sure that we empower, we educate, and we equip, our guests with the essentials that they need for, creating an ultimate service experience for their guests. So the way I came up with Parallel Inception is, if you think of the word parallel, and I'll mention our motto is creating an ultimate service experience together. So if you think of the word parallel and you think of two parallel lines, they're going side by side with one another. They're working together. And then the word inception, meaning creating. So together, we're creating an ultimate service experience for our customers. So that's where Parallel Inception comes into play. And like I said, it's a consultant company where we provide trainings to small businesses. Our biggest focus is HBCUs, and we want to focus on HBCUs because that's where all of my experience lies. I've worked at Paine College, Albany State University, and currently at Huston Tilliston University. So we're very familiar with the HBCU and the culture and the comments and the commentary revolve around customer service at our HBCU. So that's where our focus is. But yeah, that's Parallel Inception. So you can actually, if you want to learn more information about the company, you can just visit www.parallelinception.com.
Well, congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
So you guys are providing customer service trainings, classroom management training, student leadership training through Parallel Inception as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, we, like you mentioned, customer service, but also student leadership trainings. As you asked earlier, what do I enjoy most about working in higher education? And I mentioned the student engagement. So while I was at Albany State University, I had the opportunity to conduct student leadership trainings during their student leadership retreat. So I conducted those leadership trainings for 3 years. Also, I've conducted classroom management training for K through 12 teachers. So those are also components of Parallel Inception. So you can get your customer service trainings, you can get your student leadership trainings for your students, whether it be high school, whether it be college, and you could also get classroom management trainings for your K through 12 teachers. And those classroom management trainings are designed to provide teachers with the strategies that they need to minimize low-level pesky behavior within the classroom before they escalate to a high level.
I mentioned again with Parallel Inception, you are also giving out tips. You're also working in, through social media to share some quick tips. And we'll also be leaving all of the links to Parallel Inception as well as their social channels in our show notes. And you'll be able to find it on our website as well. But what's one of the tips if you could leave a client or just anyone with something regarding customer service? And I know you have several of them, but if there's an overarching one, what tip would you give someone just to increase and improve their experience with their customers/guests?
Gotcha. The one tip I would leave would be to smile. And the reason I say smile is because it just puts you in a better mood when you smile. And that is the beginning of the service experience. If you yourself are in a great mood, then you're excited and you're ready to deliver service to the guests that you come in contact with. And then also smiling. In one of my quick tips, I mentioned how smiling really gets the creative juices flowing within your mind. So if you're smiling, then your brain is at its best when it comes to creativity. So when you're interacting with a guest who may have a challenging situation, you're able to come up with a creative solution that stays within company policy, but you're able to come up with a creative solution to assist that guest. So that one tip that I would definitely, and it's simple, is to just smile, because that's the beginning of everything.
Nice. Okay, so we've talked a lot about career, but we're going to kind of wrap up career a little bit and transition over to HBCU life. Now, as you mentioned, you had a journey. You've been blessed with the opportunity to attend 2 HBCUs and work at 3. But just to talk about your
Right.
time at Paine College, what would you say your undergraduate experience was like, and what are some of your favorite memories from that time?
Man, I would say it's so many, and I'm really just trying to narrow it down to one. But I will go to the experience that I had on the baseball team as a student athlete at Paine College. When I arrived there was a gentleman who walked myself and my teammate around campus, as if we were just the top recruits in the nation. I had never had that red carpet treatment. So that was an experience there. And then when we had the opportunity to actually, join the team and get on the practice diamond and interact with the players, what I really and absolutely loved the most was the chemistry that we had as a team. And there was one thing that that will always be with me pretty much for the rest of my life was these guys on this baseball team. We were literally like a family. It was to the point where we traveled in packs. If there was one baseball player going to the cafeteria, all the baseball players were going to the cafeteria. The one thing that I appreciated the most was at the end of every practice, at the end of every game, there was a creed that we all recited together. And I will remember this creed for the rest of my life. And the creed goes, I'm a lion. I'm proud to be a lion. We're a family dependent upon each other. I respect my school, my coaches, my teammates, and myself. This team is as solid as I am, and I'll do anything to keep it that way. And that was our creed. And we said that at the end of every single practice and at the end of every single game. And this creed was such a big deal that when we performed terribly, our coach would take the creed from us. And he said, you know what? You don't deserve to say the creed. And it was so important that literally, I'm talking grown men, guys 19, 20, 21 would literally be in tears because we could not recite the creed at the end of practice or at the end of the game. So that was one experience that I will never forget as long as I live. That is that creed.
Yeah, it sounds like it was something that unified you all.
Absolutely, it did. And my first year there at Paine, we actually went on to, play in the SIAC championship game. Unfortunately, we came up a little bit short, but it was something that really kept us together as a team, and it contributed definitely to our successes that year.
Awesome. Now we've talked a little bit about sports, and as the listeners may know, I say this reluctantly because I was going to say Paine, like Claflin, is a basketball school, but you guys had a brief time with the football program. So, and now you're back. But while you were there, it was, mainly known as kind of like the overarching sport, which kind of tied together your homecoming. So being a student athlete and, undergraduate experience, all of that, what was your homecoming like?
Oh, man. Homecoming was just, as the students say now, it was lit. I mean, lit wasn't the term back then, but homecoming was lit. And even at Claflin and at Paine, but specifically at Paine, I just really, as I alluded to it earlier, I just really appreciated going to the parties with the baseball team. Now, I will say we didn't have the best reputation at the parties because, I will say that sometimes we were the cause of some of the parties being shut down a little bit early, but that's just the HBC part of the HBCU experience. But my homecoming experience was just absolutely phenomenal when it came to homecoming. Like I said, it was tied around the basketball team. So our homecoming actually was in the spring. So it was just great, just being able to go to the parties, just being able to mix and mingle with some of the alums who had just graduated, seeing the excitement on their faces when they came back to the institution for homecoming. It was just a phenomenal experience. Even
And have you been back as an alum?
Okay, so the last time, and man, I know the last time I've been to homecoming was 2014. So it's been a little drought. But I'm definitely going to be there next year in 2019.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about you being a Payneite or an alum of the great PC. What on here, like I said, the podcast has an alumni focus, and one of the things I always like to talk to HBCU graduates about is giving, because we hear, from a lot of people here and there. Maybe they went to HBCUs, maybe they didn't. But one of the things they like to always bring up is, people aren't giving back, people aren't giving back. So for you, what does giving back to Paine College look like?
So giving back to Paine College, it happens in a number of ways. It happens financially, just being able to set up a monthly payment. I'm not going to share exactly what I give back on a monthly basis, but just setting up a monthly payment to give to the institution, it's better than nothing. And for those alums out there, regardless of what institution you may have gone to, I also want to share and encourage if you're unable to give back financially, that's not the only way that you can give back to your institution. You can give back to your institution through volunteering. You can give back through recruiting student. That's revenue for the institution. So if you're interested in recruiting students to go back to the institution, definitely connect with the admissions office. Even if you're not in the city, I'm sure there are some high schools where you may be residing, and you can go and recruit students. And then also even with your talent. So if you have a special talent, maybe you're a motivational speaker, maybe you're a comedian, maybe you have a business, or maybe you want to go back and speak to a business class and talk about your entrepreneurship journey. Just definitely give back. There are other ways to give back besides financially, just to make sure that you're constantly keeping the school informed and about things that you're doing and helping the school progress.
And I was going to ask you, what exactly would you tell your fellow alums? But it looks like you already gave them their marching orders.
Okay. Yeah, march on.
Okay, so I've recently had the opportunity to speak with Selena Khan, the director of athletics at Paine. And she's excited about everything that's happening at Paine, the direction that the college is going, as well as athletics. And I know just from HBCU experience in general, giving specifically to athletics is a little bit of a pain point, because sometimes we see that our graduates, kind of focus in on just a general gift and they forget specifically about athletics. Now, if you could encourage any of your former teammates who are probably also alums to give specifically back to your athletic program, what would you tell them? Being, former student athlete yourself.
Well, actually, myself and a couple of alums, we've been talking with one another just to make sure that we can put together some type of financial contribution to give specifically to the baseball team. So that's something that we're actually in the process of doing right now. So I don't necessarily have any marching orders for them, because we're actually in the process of a plan or a game plan to give back to the baseball program.
But if you could encourage a high school student to choose Paine College or any other HBCU, what would you tell them?
I would tell them definitely go visit the campus to see, what it's like to be on that campus. And when I say visit the campus, most people think, scheduling a campus tour. And that's one way. But I would say, sign up for an open house or a preview day, because at those particular events, you get the full gamut of the institution. You get to hear from campus leadership. You get to hear from current students. It's just, you get to hear from faculty, staff, and you can get a campus tour on that particular day. So I would encourage those students to go to an open house or a preview day. And the reason I say that is because After working for so many years within enrollment management, we've learned that students who attend those particular events, there's a high percentage of those students who actually enroll into the institution. So definitely go there because you're going to get a full experience of that particular HBCU. That would be my advice.
What else is coming up for you, and what should we be on the lookout for? And also share where listeners can find out more information about you specifically, your consulting firm, and your book.
Yeah, so what's coming up now is actually working on a training workbook. That way, when we're going out and we're doing our consultings, there's a takeaway, a physical takeaway besides the book that the attendees can refer to constantly. So working on a training workbook for the training services. In terms of finding more information about me, you can visit again parallelinception.com. I have a bio there to where you can read up on me. There's contact information to reach me as well via email and phone. So that's pretty much what's coming up. Working on a training workbook. You can find me at parallelinception.com. You can find me on Instagram at Parallel Inception. You definitely don't want to miss out on your Quick Tip Tuesday or your customer service word of the day. So that's where you can find me.
Parallel Inception is where you can find out more about Jeffrey Pierce II, about his book that I think you're going to love, which is Be My Guest, a guide for creating an ultimate service experience. You can also go to thehbcupodcast.com, where we will have everything you need to know about him. We'll have a full bio if you check our show notes, as well as the website. We'll also have links to everything that he just shared. So don't think you missed out on the information. You'll be able to find it all there. Jeffrey, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Natasha, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the HBCU podcast. We have so much more HBCU content on the way, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast, rate the podcast, and visit us at thehbcupodcast.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at thehbcupodcast. Like us on Facebook. We love you for listening. Until next time.